You can skip on. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Fruman. I'm the Ward 3 council member and chairperson of the Committee on Human Services. Today is Thursday, February 20th, 2025. We are meeting in person in room 500 of the John A. Wilson Building and virtually via Zoom. The time is now 9:32. Today, we are conducting a performance oversight hearing on the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, or OCTFME. Is that the good pronunciation? Thank you. OCTFME's mandate is broad, and their work enriches the cultural and public life of the district in a variety of ways. First, OCTFME produces and broadcasts programming on the district's public education and government access cable channels and public radio station. OCTFME also regulates cable television in the district, negotiating and overseeing the district's cable franchises. Additionally, OCTFME provides permitting, location scouting, and production support while developing the district's creative workforce and administering the Film, Television, and Entertainment Rebate Fund. Finally, OCTFME operates the district's Creative Affairs Office, where it works to showcase the work of district creatives. One function of the Creative Affairs Office is the administration of the 202 Creates, an institutional effort to celebrate and support the district's creative culture. 202 Creates offers in part a residency program that helps entrepreneurs start and scale their work, and the Go-Go support program through which individuals and organizations can apply for funding to support projects that honor and advance Go-Go's rich cultural legacy. I'm excited to dig into OCTFME's work today. We'll be exploring how OCTFME assesses the impact of its work to ensure that our district dollars are supporting economic growth. We will also be investigating the nuts and bolts of the agency's operations, looking into everything from the operation of large events to overtime and the role of contractors. Now I'd like to offer a note on logistics. In order to ensure that we hear from all members of the public, I ask that all witnesses stick to their allotted time. The first witness to testify on behalf of an organization will have 5 minutes to provide oral testimony, and all other witnesses will have 3 minutes. First, we will call witnesses who are here in person to testify on a single panel. When your name is called, please take a seat at the table in front of me, and before you speak, make sure you turn on the microphone in front of you. My understanding is that we do not have any virtual witnesses, so I'm going to forego the extended description of all the things that virtual witnesses should deal with. Um, I think with that, now let's turn to our panel of in-person witnesses. And so I would like to call Will Crane from the Foggy Bottom Association, Gloria Hightower. No, no. And Nance Ricard, the Executive Director of the Public Access Corporation of the District of Columbia. All right, and with that, Mr. Crane, the floor is yours.
Good morning. And thank you for letting me testify today with our experience with OCTFME. That's what rolls off my tongue, so that's the way I'm going to pronounce it. I apologize if that's not the correct way. My name is Will Crane, and I'm the Vice President of the Foggy Bottom Association, Chair of our Infrastructure Committee, and a resident of SMD 2A03 since 1999. The Foggy Bottom Historic District is a residential area with about 135 buildings, primarily late 19th century and 20th centuries. The district is known for its narrow brick row homes, typically 2, maybe 3 stories high, with simple designs and minimal ornamentation. Notably, only 108 alley dwellings survive in the entire District of Columbia, and this is from a high in 2012 of over 3,300, with a significant collection found in Capitol Hill, Georgetown, and Foggy Bottom. The architecture reflects the growth of diverse working class communities before Congress placed a moratorium on their construction in 1892. I call one of them home. It's 9 feet wide, and the adjacent unit is a rental unit. But what does all this have to do with OCTFME? It sounds like an amazing movie location. It has to do with the ever-growing, but what I'm here to talk about today is the ever-growing and persistent problem of overhead wires relating to cable television. That was with the understanding that Verizon wires are not under OCTFME's purview. I have given numerous photographs to the panel in my submitted testimony, so I'm not going to refer to those. But the simple ask today of you is that OCTFME apply the same oversight and design standards that they give to those houses that are on the street to those of us that live in the alley. In my alley of Snow's Court, there's over 30 homes without a street front facade. All of those properties have significant wires that, when I've spoken to the engineers over the years, essentially the engineers think that these are the back of the street houses. So they think that they can just put wires up anywhere. One house in particular has over 40 wires traversing on or hanging from his home. What we are asking for: differentiate commercial alleys from residential alleys. Establish a design standard for residential alleys that respects the historic designation. Raise the cable runs above our second-story windows, not only for fire safety egress, but for roof maintenance access. Consider a rule for cable installers that reduces duplicate wire runs by simply, when you install a wire, you remove a wire. And continue and expand the underground cable requirements to our residential alleys in the District of Columbia. I would like to take this moment and thank the efforts of Ms. Mabel Gist, the cable inspector with OCTFME that I've worked with since 2008 on this issue. I cannot stress enough the positive working relationship that I've had with her, and my fear is that she'll retire. because I don't think that someone would understand the idiosyncrasies of district law, residential historic alleys, and the issues that we deal with every day. I hope the committee can make our efforts less laborious moving forward, because it's hard to summarize my experience of 14 years trying to summarize in 5 minutes. And this is not just for my alley, but for the historic alleys of Foggy Bottom, Georgetown, and Capitol Hill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Please accept my open invitation to come tour Snows Court. Chairman Mendelson has come. Councilmember Pinto has also come. I'm happy to give perspective in person, and I will also be available for questions before I am scheduled to testify downstairs at DC Water. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Nance Ricard, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm Nance Rickard. I'm the president and CEO of DCTV, formerly known as the Public Access Corporation of the District of Columbia. We're a 501c3 charitable nonprofit organization established to govern and manage cable television channels set aside for public use and other assets reserved for public access as provided for by cable television franchise agreements with Comcast, Astound, and Verizon. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today in support of and as a partner with the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. DCTV is a singularly unique as a cable television and media platform. We are dedicated as a non-commercial platform for DC's own local programming, where individuals and organizations are provided valuable media education, equipment, and studios to create media, and cable channels to use the power of media to create a positive impact across our communities. We are grateful for over 4 decades of strong, consistent support for DCTV by the administration and the DC Council that has provided the foundation for DCTV to serve our city. Since 1986, DCTV has worked closely with OCTFME to develop and advance our important network of public educational and government channels and resources. We are particularly appreciative of OCTFME's General Counsel Lawrence Cooper and for Director LaToya Foster and past directors for all the really excellent work they have done over the years and continue to do, working with and supporting DCTV and to benefit DC's residents, organizations, and businesses. As the landscape for media, especially local media in our cities and our city's own channels continues to extensively change, we are seeking yet more ways we can work together with OCTFME to strengthen our network. Today, I will focus on the initiative, the Creative Economy Career Access Program, CCAP. It's a workforce training program that offers qualifying District of Columbia residents an opportunity to receive the training and on-the-job work experience, mentoring, and job placement support required to establish sustainable careers in the creative industry and a pathway to the middle class. CCAP is managed by OCTFME with administrative support provided by DOES. OCTFME partners with DCTV for us to provide the training for each cohort. DCTV is also an employer mentor for program participants. This is an important program both for continuing to build DC's vital creative economy and providing DC residents opportunities to pursue careers in the media industry. Jobs in video production are a valuable part of DC's economy, even without considering the number of self-employed in media, which is the most substantial part of this industry. And looking at just a few of the media jobs, compared to other states, DC has the highest concentration of jobs for video producers, directors, and camera operators at 3 to 4 times the national average, and is 4th in the nation for editors at almost twice the national average. All of these positions are well paid, with DC in the top 5 of all states. For over 35 years, DCTV has been a leader providing media education and hands-on experience in video production, including for multimedia professional development. We have trained thousands of people over the years, including supporting internships and volunteer opportunities in production, with many of the people served by DCTV launching or expanding their careers in media. About 15 years ago, we worked with OCTFME in exploratory conversations to develop an additional path for supporting entrance into media careers for DC residents. We worked in particular with Herbert Niles, their current Associate Director of the Film Division, to develop what ultimately became the CCAP program. In June of 2015, DCTV was approved by the DC Apprenticeship Council to be the Department of Employment Services training provider for the purposes of a creative economy and media industry apprenticeship program. The first CCAP cohort launched in 2016. Every year since, except for a one-year interruption in FY21 due to COVID, DCTV has trained 5 to 7 district residents seeking a career in media and who were competitively selected for the limited number of coveted spots. DCTV also served as an employer mentor for one or two of the trainees each year as their on-the-job placement with the DC employer for the remainder of the year following training paid through DOES. The cohort members had a range of experiences entering the program, and all have been passionate about building their skills and pursuing a career in media. DCTV hired one trainee following his completion of the CCAP program, who after working with DCTV has continued to advance his media career. DCTV is also contracted with a few other program graduates for occasional freelance work. We have enjoyed working with OCTFME and Mr. Niles, who has excellently managed the program over these years. DCTV is excited to serve as a training provider and also continue as an employer mentor in the future. We currently stand ready, hoping to welcome a CCAP cohort in the coming months. We are also very excited about expanding our partnership with OCTFME to ensure the continued vibrancy and growth of our local programming, the creative economy, and our public, educational, and government channels serving DC residents, businesses, and organizations. We look forward to working with Councilmember Fruman and the DC Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'd be happy to provide any additional information you may need or answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Gonna start with Mr. Crane. And I had not heard about this issue, and that specific to cable. I do hear about the issue actually quite a lot because we have a tangle of wires above the city, some of which are being used and some of which are not being used. And often you'll find a downed wire and nobody knows whose it is. And so then you need to get it addressed, but you don't know where to go. And do you have to call everybody? Your ask is very specific to the placement of cable wires, or are there other wires that are in your community that also create an issue for you?
Yes, is the simple answer. But the oversight, as the council seems to have allocated responsibilities, bifurcated. Poles, and if I misspeak, correct me. But what my understanding is that poles and wires by Verizon are under the purview of the Public Service Commission, while cable wires are under the purview of OCTFME. I've worked at the 930 Club for 24 years, so that's the only reason why I had heard of OCTFME. And I reached out to them in 2008, having no understanding of the rabbit hole of regulation I was getting into. The wires are many, and I hate to say that I am able to identify a coax from a fiber wire, but it's a mess, and it is very difficult to navigate from the public side. When we've purchased historic property, we give up rights to development in exchange for this character that needs to be preserved. But certain entities are exempt, or we don't quite know, but we're not looking for a rewrite of historic preservation law. We're just looking for agency policy that recognizes that, hey, these structures are one, this is the front of the house, 2, they're historic, and 3, treat an alley dwelling that's a residence the same as you would a grand architectural showcase piece on the street.
Okay. So, and do you also have an issue with Verizon wires in your area that you're going to a different agency on? And
Yes.
yes.
Councilmember Pinto started the Snows Court Task Force in August 2023 as a multi-agency approach to not just address wires, but approach sewer, surfacing. There's a whole list. But so we are engaged with the Public Service Commission. We are in the midst of having poles repaired, replaced, and relocated, but trying to act as a middleman for cable companies and for Verizon is driving me insane. And it's not something, I'm happy to come testify on behalf of the neighborhood, but trying to have this unpaid position is untenable.
No, I totally hear you, and I absolutely do not want to see you go insane. I think that what struck me is you're talking about a piece of an issue that I'm seeing another piece of someplace else. And so it sounds like a thing for me to do, maybe to get plugged into what Councilmember Pinto is trying to do more broadly, because I do think that there is utility, ironic word to use, to stepping back and taking stock of all of the different wires that we have, because many of them are no longer in use. Some of our poles, we have places where there's two poles next to each other. Most of the wires have been moved off of the old pole onto a new pole, but there are some that are still sitting there on the old pole. Nobody knows who they are. And so the old pole's sitting there. And so you have two poles next to each other by the side of the road blocking views. So I'm grateful to you for your testimony. I think you raise an issue that I understand how it's critical to your cozy corner in Foggy Bottom, but it's also a broader issue. And so that's part of the reason I'm grateful for your testimony. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. And if I may respond too, that there has been, I don't mention polls here because I imagine that the response you'll receive is that it's not under their purview. We do have poles that have started to fall that have pulled the 19th, these are 19th century bricks that are not modern. So the pole is leaning and is pulling the corner of the building with it. So what we're trying to avoid is that pole remaining there with the new poles in place. So we're simply waiting on cable to finish their job to get that pole out. But we're trying to avoid that situation of, oh, there's a wire, there's one left, who knows? And then the pole falls and this structure collapses.
Got you. And so want to try to find ways to be helpful. It sounds like the Office of Cable Television is trying to be helpful. And just a parting thing is when you said that the peak of alley dwellings was, I think, in I forget whether you said
1912.
1912. Yeah. Oh, I misheard you. I thought you said 2012 because that's well before the raising of Southwest Washington, for example.
Yes.
All right. Great. Thank you very much for your testimony. On the career path program, can you help me understand? Because when we were looking through the responses, and we saw it was a 3-week training program, and then the hope was that it would have all kinds of impact. And the way in which you described it maybe fills out some of the things that we were looking for after we saw the responses. What did the participants do in that 3 weeks?
They're there, the 3 weeks is 3 weeks of full-time. So it's 40 hours a week that they are at our facility. And then we train them on the concepts of production. So shot composition, things you have to look for in lighting, and technically how to operate the camera, how to operate audio, what are the different kinds of equipment that they'll encounter, what are the different positions that and what their responsibilities are on a shoot, like getting everything set up, the kinds of support that would be needed for that. Once you're shooting, the kinds of things you need, shot composition, what you're looking for in relation to whether you have a script or not. And we're just going through every aspect of production that they may encounter with their employer as this broad overview, but with hands-on. So they actually operate the equipment, they actually set up three-point lighting. We give them some introduction to studio work in our studios. And we make sure that when they walk out to the employer that they have enough of a hands-on feel for what they're going to be assigned to at their employer mentor, that they have that groundwork already set. And all the employers from when we were working to develop this program were very much of the mind that they would only participate in the program if this piece could happen first. They didn't want someone sort of walking off the street and they were trying to, come in to a new career in media, but really were walking in to be mentored but had zero background. Even if they tried to shoot things on their own or whatever, that having this more formal structure is sort of the ground for them being able to walk to the employer mentors.
And how does that work? How many staff are working on that training in that 3-week period? Is it one instructor? Who's it? 5 instructors? How does that 3-week period work?
There's one main instructor, and then there are times where, like when they are shooting, practicing field work, we may bring in an assistant instructor so that we had 2 instructors when there was 7 people, but with 5 people, we really only need it when they are in a setting and we need to sort of split off and be really monitoring how each person is working.
And you said that it's a competitive process, but it looked to us like the application form doesn't require a lot of detail. How is it that you're differentiating between applicants? How many applicants do you get for each year? And then what are your criteria for choosing folks?
We don't do the initial application screen or the applications. DOES does that, and OCTFME probably has a role in that. So there's an initial screening, as I understand it, at DOES that, and I can't speak to their criteria, then they select finalists that then go to OCTFME, and then they go through and I think select the final candidates, do the interviews, and try to find, I think that there's, and I think Mr. Niles can speak better to this, that there's some basis for them going into the program, that it's not like, oh, I woke up this morning and I want to be a camera person for the rest of my life, that they've done something first. And I only say that from the fact that once we get them that have been selected by OCTFME, that we've never had a person that hasn't done anything. And that may just be the competitive nature of the program.
All right, wonderful. I will ask later on this. And then they go from you into a paid internship for 8 months, or
yes,
that DOES and you all have already lined up. So you have employers who are taking people on, and then is that internship? How is that internship paid? Is that internship paid by the employer, or is that internship paid by the district, or is it a cost sharing for that internship?
It's paid entirely by DOES. And what the employer does is keep the time cards in accordance with the program requirements and standards of DOES and submit the time cards to them, and then they have the arrangement to pay the interns directly.
And then you referenced that you feel like the program has been successful in helping people get into these jobs. Do you have data that supports that? Are you tracking what's the results of the program 1 year out, 2 years out?
We try to keep track of the people that we were employer mentor for, but OCTFME is the responsible for the program, and they're the ones that would have the more granular data.
So I'll just give a heads up that that's the kind of question that I'll be asking, and likely on a number of different things as we try to understand all of the different responses that we received. Well, I have my sister-in-law's brother is a sound person. And the way you described it often, self-employed, he's self-employed, and it is a great line of work. I mean, when it comes, it's intense, and does pay well, as you described. So getting people into that kind of line of work where they can build a career and be independent, a lot to be said for it. So thank you very much for your work. And thank you for the work on the access programming as well. I think I don't have any questions this time on that, but maybe back to you a different time to try to check in on what kinds of, well, I guess I will ask, do you have ideas of things that you'd like to be doing with the public access programming that today you haven't been in a position to do?
We, over the past couple of years, have really been trying to expand into how to really amp up how to use media for a positive impact in our communities. So we did a piece working with Bainum Foundation on early childhood education, for which the District of Columbia is a leader in the nation for the 0 to 5 space, and to then generate the conversations amongst all the different parties. We held a town hall to be able to bring everyone together that doesn't usually talk to each other in that space for that. And the people that were involved in that felt like it was a very positive experience, because like the teachers talked to the teachers, and the advocates and the parents talked to themselves, and the government is somehow in both of those spaces. But to bring them all in the room together was a very different experience for everybody. And the idea of advancing that space is huge for everybody on every level about everything. I mean, that's like a foundation piece. We also did a piece on breast cancer in Black community, because there's a 40% disparity mortality rate for Black women and Latina women versus white women that are diagnosed with breast cancer. And the District of Columbia had one of the highest mortality rates in the country in Ward 7 and 8. And so doing a piece to educate about that and start conversations about that, we're still in process on that one. But stepping more into these, like, how can we create really positive change in our communities using media as the basis to generate the kinds of conversations that need to happen?
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for your testimony. I think we'll move on we'll do one check to see if Gloria Hightower has arrived either in person or online. No? All right, then we will move to our government witnesses. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We will now be joined by LaToya Foster, the Director of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. And I believe maybe we should start by each of you stating your name and position, and then we will move on to swearing in.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. My name is LaToya Foster. I'm the Director of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment.
Good morning. I'm Herbert Niles. I'm the Associate Director of the Film Division.
Good morning, Council Member. My name is Cassandra Fields. I'm the Agency Fiscal Officer with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer for the agency.
Good morning. My name is James D. Brown. I'm a Special Assistant to the agency.
Wonderful. It's the practice of this committee to place our government witnesses under oath. So I would ask that you each please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Human Services is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Wonderful. I understand, and not surprisingly from your office, that we have been blessed with a film, and so we'll move to showing that film, and then we'll move to your testimony.
Thank you.
Penalty of perjury, we have testimony you are blessed with a film to the Committee on Human Services is the truth, the whole truth, to showing that film, truth, and then we'll move to your testimony. Wonderful. I understand, and not surprised.
A city that has fun together will be there together in the tough times.
Be downtown. It was too much talent up in here. Woo! In 2024, the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment furthered its vision to be all things entertainment in the District of Columbia. Our legal and regulatory team served as dedicated advocates for district cable customers, ensuring the highest technology standards for residents while resolving billing issues and service interruptions. Production and programming increased its sports presence, created programming to drive foot traffic downtown, produced award-winning programming, all while providing coverage of a record-breaking number of live press conferences and council proceedings. Our operations team worked to improve our facilities' infrastructure to maintain consistent, high-quality broadcasts across the city. DC Radio celebrated its 7th year with diverse, quality programming on one of only 2 full-powered radio stations in the country owned by a municipality. Our film division served as a one-stop shop for filmmakers, attracting both big-budget productions and independent films, creating jobs and supporting economic development. Come and get me!
OCTFME's Creative Affairs Office made a lasting impact in every ward, championing the growth and development of our creative economy.
We want the world to know that we are the district of culture, creativity, and cool. DC is a vibe.
Don't mess with Washington, D.C. And you very definitely can't touch our culture.
Well, that's a hard act to follow, Director Foster. So, but if you want to proceed with your testimony.
Well, we thank you so much, Councilmember Fruman. And again, good morning to you, members and staff of the Committee on Human Services. Again, I am Latoya Foster, the Director of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. And on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser and the agency, I am pleased to provide testimony about the activities and accomplishments of OCTFME in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 to date. The mission of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment is to regulate cable television service providers, provide high-quality, responsive customer service for district cable subscribers, produce and broadcast 24-hour public, educational, and government programming and original content highlighting the district's culture, to lead, grow, and support a sustainable creative economy and entertainment media industry by managing programs and initiatives such as the Film Rebate Fund, 202 Creates, and through activities of the Creative Affairs Office, And finally, to serve as the entertainment economic engine and communications hub for the DC government, a one-stop shop for all things entertainment, including concerts, festivals, film, television productions, gaming, and immersive media. Mayor Bowser's fiscal year 24 budget made investments that supported our efforts to deliver on the promise of shared DC values. These efforts include creating economic opportunity, making our neighborhoods safer, and providing more effective and efficient government services. We continue to work each day to fulfill our commitment to provide district residents with opportunities and a pathway to the middle class. OCTFME's legal and regulatory team continues to work closely with the district's 3 cable and internet service providers to ensure prompt resolution of customer service, billing, and infrastructure issues. As advocates for our district cable and broadband customers, our team effectively escalates customer concerns and serves as a resource that can secure greater value for their services. The team also continues to facilitate the provider's efforts to upgrade technology throughout the district. OCTFME continues to provide transparency and valuable information to district residents through its 3 PEG channels: DCN, the District of Columbia Network, DCC, the District Council Channel, and DKN, the District Knowledge Network. In fiscal year 24, our production crew covered over 500 mayoral press conferences, groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, studio productions, and community events presented by the Executive Office of the Mayor, government agencies, and community partners. Additionally, our programming team showcased 450 virtual, hybrid, and in-person hearings on DCC with the support from the DC Council, resulting in over 1,200 hours of council proceedings captured to date. Our productions not only aired on our channels, but also serves as the press pool for local, national, and international media outlets, providing resources for news organizations, including breaking news press conferences involving the city. Our multi-Emmy award-winning team worked with DC Youth Mayor Lourdes Robinson to produce a 6-episode series titled Speak Out DC. This series gave a voice and a platform for young adults to express concerns and offer opinions on local and national concerns, including artificial intelligence, money matters, and the state of our democracy. OCTFME also continued its support of our sports capital, focusing on the city's professional sports teams and arenas by embarking upon a docuseries titled Monumental Sports Moment. The series showcases Capital One Arena, Entertainment and Sports Arena, the Washington Mystics, the Wizards, and the Capitals, and the fans and businesses that support the downtown economic engine. In fiscal year 24, OCTFME partnered with the DC Divas, a women's gridiron football team that plays in the Women's Football Alliance, to create a 7-part docuseries that provides an up-close and personal look at the drive and dedication the women exhibit in pursuing their dreams to play professional football, all while working and raising their families. High school sports coverage has also been enhanced on DKN, the District Knowledge Network. Boys soccer, football, baseball, and basketball games have been featured, as well as girls volleyball, soccer, and softball. OCTFME remains consistent in airing hundreds of hours of diverse and award-winning programming, capturing the coveted top honor of Overall Excellence Awards in 2024 from the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors. This award recognizes excellence among PEG channels across the country. Programming also received awards of excellence for Good Things DC in the interview show category and March on Washington behind the scenes in the ethnic experience category. Additionally, awards of honor were received for Holiday Spirit Joy in Arts and Entertainment, the 2023 agency performance reel for a profile of a city, county, department, or employee, and the 2023 Emancipation Day for live community event coverage. A local Emmy nomination was received for Speak Out DC in the category of societal concerns. OCTFME continues to produce programming that highlights our businesses, our vibrancy, our arts and culture scene in support of downtown and across all 8 wards, including our lifestyle magazine programs, We Are Washington, the Uptown Downtown, Be Downtown, and the Monumental Sports Moment. And for the first time ever during the 2024 holiday season, in our efforts to increase downtown foot traffic and tourism, OCTFME led the efforts and produced a promotional video along with our friends at the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, Monumental Sports, the Downtown Business Improvement District, the Executive Office of the Mayor, and the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development to promote the holiday season in DC, which aired on our networks, as well as the Monumental Sports and Entertainment Network, Comcast, and on monitors in the baggage claim and concourse areas inside Washington Reagan National and Washington Dulles airports. Fiscal planning and infrastructure management continue to be priorities for our operations team in fiscal year 24. After securing a comprehensive evaluation of the computer-based building automation system, also known as BAS, that controls our primary building support systems, critical upgrades were completed. These upgrades were required to avoid any interruptions in our broadcast operations center and in effectively fulfilling our role as a communications hub for the District of Columbia government. In our business development arm of operations, we also worked to secure sponsorships and grow revenue through strategic partnerships. During this performance period, DC Radio, a partnership with Howard University's WHUR 96.3, which is one of only 2 full power radio stations in the United States owned by a municipality, and the district's official government radio station, continue to produce high quality content. Our programming included audio and video podcasts, PSAs, and promotions, all of which aired across our digital and social media platforms. Among the voices featured on the station were our very own Mayor Muriel Bowser, founder, chairman, and CEO of Monumental Sports, Ted Leonsis, Chief of Police, Pamela Smith, Grammy-nominated R&B artist Raheem Devon, former Chamber of Commerce Chair Angela Franco, and a host of others. DC Radio also served to connect our listeners to Mayor Bowser's investments, resources, and opportunities for residents and listeners. DC Radio is accessible through SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and iHeart. OCTFME's film division is a one-stop shop that issues film permits, provides production locations assistance, and manages the Film Rebate Fund. The DC Film Rebate Fund promotes economic impact by generating revenue for district businesses, promoting tourism, creating jobs, and providing media training opportunities for DC residents. In fiscal year 24, OCTFME tracked the economic impact of 7 DC Film Rebate Fund qualifying media production projects and 1 qualifying media infrastructure project. The current estimated direct, indirect, and induced economic and labor force impacts of those projects was $18.1 million. The projects created 152 DC resident jobs and $460,000 in wages to DC residents. A total of $1.4 million in rebates were issued to those projects. Since the inception of the DC Rebate Fund program in fiscal year 2016, the program has issued rebates to a total of 80 qualifying projects that have produced a total estimated economic impact of $203.6 million. 2,008 jobs and a total of $7.7 million in wages were generated for DC residents. And just to paint a picture, in fiscal year 24, OCTFME permitted or incentivized through the Film Rebate Fund productions, including Netflix's Zero Day, which is premiering today, starring Robert De Niro and Angela Bassett, as well as Netflix's The Night Agent, The Residents, and NBA 2K. And even though they were incentivized in the prior fiscal year, blockbusters such as Marvel's Captain America: Brave New World, which was just released in theaters on February 14th, as well as Amazon Prime's Cross, which garnered 40 million viewers in its first 20 days, hosted special screenings in our city in just the past few weeks. OCTFME's Creative Economy Career Access Program is an innovative workforce development program that connects district residents from underrepresented communities with local creative economy skills training and paid on-the-job mentorship placements. Since the program launched in fiscal year 16, a total of 47 district residents have participated in the program. As a division of OCTFME, the Creative Affairs Office showcases and preserves the district's rich creative communities throughout all 8 wards. CAO builds sustainability in the creative community through policy and programming, further expanding the pathway to the middle class for the creative workforce and monitoring trends in the creative economy. In accordance with the Go-Go People's Plan, CAO rallies behind artists, initiatives, programs designed to preserve and promote the district's go-go music, history, and culture. During fiscal year 24, the Creative Affairs Office and 202 Creates played a key role in supporting go-go music through various initiatives, events, and recordings by supporting 73 events through the Go-Go Fund, including the Global Music Exchange Program, which facilitated a cultural collaboration where OCTFME sponsored the Future Band, which introduced Cuban school children to the parallels between go-go and Afro-Latin music. Also, Art to Go-Go in partnership with the Anacostia Business Improvement District, DC Black Broadway, which produced several sold-out performances at the Lincoln Theater, which included DC Talent and Youth, the annual Barbecue Battle Weekend in downtown DC, which attracted over 80,000 attendees. And we produced go-go sets at the Washington Commanders games during the Women of Washington and HBCU days at the stadium, which fostered stronger relationships and created new opportunities for our go-go artists. Just this week, we're celebrating the 5th anniversary of the go-go legislation, kicking off with a concert at the historic Howard Theater, along with our friends at DC Public Library and the Department of Parks and Recreation, and supporting the grand opening of the Go-Go Museum just yesterday and other events. The Creative Affairs Office also continued its support of the Performing Arts Promotion Amendment Act, better known as PAPA, Real Property Tax Rebate Program for small performing arts venues. In fiscal year 24, OCTFME certified 13 venue applications to the Office of Tax and Revenue for cash rebate eligibility of up to $195,000. In partnership with the George Washington University, the Creative Affairs Office continued its Care for Creatives initiative, which provides confidential, pay-what-you-can mental health counseling to creatives, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. The Creative Affairs Office houses the 202 Creates residency program, which promotes and amplifies the district's creative economy and residents. The residency connects and builds a community that highlights and fosters growth of the district's dynamic talent. In fiscal year 24, there were nearly 30 graduates from the residency program. OCTFME and the Creative Affairs Office also launched the first ever Conversations with Women in Media and Entertainment at the Eaton Hotel, which created engaging intergenerational dialogue with senior media and entertainment executives, including veteran television executive and former MSNBC Vice President Tammy Haddad, Fox 5 News anchor Maureen Ume, NBC4 reporter Tracy Wilkins, and a host of others to discuss the future of media, entertainment, and artificial intelligence. The annual 202 Creates Month in September started with a kickoff celebration held at HQO, the new DC water headquarters nestled along the Anacostia River. The celebration amplified the vast creative community that DC has to offer, featuring the Washington Wizards dancers, the Excel Academy all-girl drumline, a virtual reality art gallery, candle making, paint and sip, embroidery, a fashion gallery with DC fashion designers, and amazing performances that attracted Zach Leonsis and Ben's Chili Bowl founder Virginia Ali on a rainy Thursday night. And as a result of the platform, performers at the event were able to showcase their talent, leading to opportunities to perform during halftime at Washington Wizards games. The agency has also led several events, including the annual Bears Emancipation Day concert, which showcases Grammy Award-winning artists and draws a crowd of over 5,000 per year. The Emancipation Concert has also expanded to include a kids zone to create a family fun environment. The agency has worked in collaboration with the Executive Office of the Mayor and CNN to produce Mayor Bowser and CNN's annual 4th of July celebration, showcasing the U.S. Air Force Band and other Grammy-nominated artists, and of course, Go-Go. We also support and incentivize recurring festivals, including Live Nation's Broccoli City Festival, which in partnership with the festival and the organizers, we at OCTFME created platforms and a city stage to showcase our rich DC talent, our government officials, and business leaders. The festival has experienced tremendous growth since its launch at the St. Elizabeth's campus in 2013, which garnered 5,000 attendees. But in 2024, approximately 50,000 attendees flocked to the festival. OCTFME also engages with the Downtown Theater District and has supported the annual Theater Washington Helen Hayes Awards and events at the Woolly Mammoth Theater, as well as the 6 and I Synagogue. To close out the fiscal year, the Mayor's Arts Awards ended the month with a homecoming celebration of amazing talent and artistry at the historic Lincoln Theater. Grammy-nominated recording artist Raheem Devon and popular WHUR 96.3 FM radio personality Sunny in the City hosted the city's 39th annual Mayor's Arts Awards. The show aired on DCN and it's streamed on YouTube. Mayor's Arts Awards honors DC creatives across 15 awards categories, including 2 new award categories introduced in the past year: the Award for Excellence as a Community Arts Philanthropist and the Award for Excellence in Go-Go Music, further celebrating of DC's rich cultural and heritage. OCTFME demonstrates its dedication to district residents, businesses, and the creative community by providing open and transparent communication, inclusive and diverse programming, and events. We will continue to utilize our various media platforms to promote DC talent and showcase the district as a premier location for film and media productions. In conclusion, I'd like to thank Mayor Bowser and you, Chairperson Fruman, for your leadership and your support. We appreciate the opportunity to share our accomplishments and future plans and look forward to working with the committee. This concludes my testimony. My staff and I are happy to address any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Foster.
Thank you.
I will turn to questions shortly. I see that one of our public witnesses did arrive. Ms. Hightower, we have your testimony. We're in this phase now. If you want, want to stay, we can call you up after the government witnesses, but we're going to spend some time with the government. Okay. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to return to where we were before on the Creative Economy Career Access Program. And I'd asked before to the previous witness, how do you evaluate the applications? And I think that's done by you and DOES. And so can you help speak to how that is done, how many applications you get, what kind of criteria you use?
So we're really excited whenever we get an opportunity to talk about this program. Just to give you a little background, back in fiscal year 16, when we imagined this program, what we really wanted to do, we did an analysis of workforce training programs in the creative field. And the one thing we identified that we wanted to improve upon was most of them have that one module where they learn some skills and they get a certificate and they're sent on their way. The feature of this program that we wanted to be unique was that we wanted to make sure that after the training module, that there was actual a practical work experience on the other end after they got that training. So the way the program works is we actually identify who we call employer mentors that say that they're willing to accept as a trainee from 6 to 8 months, depending on the fiscal year and the funding, after they go through this training. And they are down with the philosophy of the program to offer these opportunities to district residents from historically underrepresented communities in the entertainment industry. So what we do is this. After we identify the 5 to 8, usually, depending on the fiscal year, employer mentors that are willing to take a trainee, we open up to applications. So we have an electronic application during the between cohorts. Anyone can fill out their application and their information, where they live, why are they interested, and they upload their resumes. And so once what we call the placement period begins, we pull all of those resumes, we contact all of those residents, see if they're still interested, because sometimes there's a lag time between when they submitted and when the selection period begins. We pull their resumes, we work with the OES to verify that they are district residents. And then what we do is, we want a good fit. We want a good match. We don't want to give our employer mentor sort of a pig and a poke. We want there to be a relationship between the candidate and the mentor. So we send all of the resumes, and just to answer one of your questions, it depends on the fiscal year, but we usually end up with, I'd say, 35 to 60 resumes and candidates. So those resumes get sent, let's just use as an example, the 5 employer mentors for that fiscal year. They read all of the resumes, and then what we have them do is we have them select 8 that they're willing to interview, right? And then so we set up interviews, they interview those 8, and then what we also do is, if not every applicant has gotten selected from the resume, we ask each employer to be willing to interview at least one person that wasn't on their list, right? So that everyone at least gets a chance to go through that soft skills experience of having an interview. And the good thing, the funny thing is, by experience, usually once a year, an employer ends up picking someone that they hadn't otherwise picked. So we like that aspect of the program. So after they do their 8 interviews, they rank who they would like placed with them from 1 to 5. And then sort of we go and we try to mix and match and place, give the employer at least their first or second choice. Sometimes it's pretty competitive and there's an interesting candidate and like 3 people want them as their first choice, but we usually try to place the first or second choice with the employer. So after that, they're assigned. So we have pre-assignments. So each employer knows after they go through DCTV's 3-week, we call it a training module. After that period is over, then they're placed with them for the remainder of the period. And again, that ranges from 6 to 8 months, depending on the year. So after they're assigned, then the training module begins, they're with DCTV, and so that cohort, the 5 to 8 people are all learning together before they're kind of sent off to different employers. And the other thing we're really excited about is that we try to do when we identify the employer mentors is to have as broad and diverse disciplines as possible in the creative industry. So we have television stations. We've had WHUR be a mentor in the past. WHUT, a radio station, has been a mentor in the past. Production companies, post-production companies, sound editing companies, advertising agencies, and digital agencies. So we try to really cover the wide range of disciplines within the creative economy. After the period is over, we worked with DOES on, that's their skill set. So our partner on the administrative side is the Department of State Initiatives, right? So they're involved with the nuts and bolts of getting the timesheets from the employers, making sure that each trainee is paid for the hours that they worked. And the other thing that they help us with at the end is the wraparound services. So sometimes the employer retains them. Sometimes they don't retain them, but they want them to stay on as a freelancer. And other times, you know, they had that experience, they have something to add to their resume, but they move on. In terms of retention, that's something that we can double check with DOES, Department of State Initiatives. And it's what they do is after 1 year, they run the Social Security number of the residents to see if they're employed somewhere. Now, we don't always know if they're still in the creative industry or they have a job somewhere else. It's just, are they employed or are they on public assistance or don't have a job? And so the experience has been, depending on the fiscal year, somewhere between 65 and 80% after 1 year are employed somewhere. Now, to get granular about each fiscal year, we could work with DOES and kind of do some work to find out some specifics, but that's the general number.
Right, that's very helpful and answered a whole bunch of my questions in the process of that. I think that I still have some more, but one of the things there was a reference to, often people are self-employed in this industry, and so the way in which you're measuring, you might miss people who are still working but freelancing or somehow. And I guess one of the questions was, what's the acceptance rate? It sounds like 5 to 8 people, but often 50 to 70 applications. So it might be on the order of 10% is the acceptance rate. It does sound like a program that the structure is impressive and the thoughtfulness of it. So thank you for that. The DOES makes sure that they get paid. What wage are they paid?
It's always the District of Columbia minimum wage for that year.
But the full minimum wage.
Full minimum wage.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many staff are devoted to the program, to managing the program or being instructors in the program?
You're looking at them.
Are you the instructor as well?
I'm not the instructor, but I'm the sort of the administrator of the program from the OCTFME side. Now, in terms of, you got the answer from Nance about the team that does that 3-week training cohort. Now, once they go to the employer, that depends on that employer and what their function is. So it might be WHUT, which has a big staff. It might be a small production company with like 3 people. So it really depends. We always have an assigned, what we call a trainee supervisor that's accountable to checking in with me and DOES every 3 weeks to see how the trainee is doing. And then depending on that particular employer, they may have other support and in-house training in addition to that.
That trainee supervisor is with the employer.
With the employer,
in terms of,
on the government side.
in terms of inside of the agency, it's you.
It's me.
And maybe a contractor who you hire to be the instructor, or?
Well, no, the instructor for the training module is all with DCTV. In terms of OCTFME, we're just kind of managing the process, the liaison between the training partner, DCTV, and DOES, and we are the sort of the conceptual, agency that makes it kind of run.
And about what percentage of your time do you think you devote to this project?
Well, it's much more intensive during the selection process. So I'd say during that 8-week period when, we begin assigning the interviews and the follow-up interviews and making sure everyone gets, to that first cohort. I'd say it's a good 30% of my time during that time. And then the other times when we're just answering questions about the program, reviewing applications, we call them interest submissions. I'd say about 10% of the time, and then sort of monitoring once they're placed. I'll call the employer, once every 3 weeks. I always try to do an in-person check-in, see how they're doing. So, about 10 to 15% of my time during the cohort.
Wonderful. I think there was a reference that there were budget pressures in FY24, and you weren't able to run the program in FY24?
Yes, so kind of speak, maybe our operations team and our budget team can speak to more of that. But last year was a time where we had to do some prioritizing of our resources. This you may have heard, and we could talk more about the issue of the decrease in our special purpose funding because of the cutting of the cord. And so we did have less budget to assign to some of our programming than we had in the past. So we did have to suspend it last year. It's the first year we suspended it.
And that was the budget pressure was the shortfall in the special purpose fund, which you would have learned about in the middle of the fiscal year. And just out of curiosity, had you already gotten to a place where people were selected, or were you?
We had gotten to not selected, but we got into the place where what happens is, when people submit their interest form, so what they have, and we say each year we try to begin the programs sometime between the early spring and the early summer. So usually right about now they're saying, so when's the selection process beginning? So we never actually began the interview process, but people had submitted their interest forms.
Okay. And where, I think we talked about the acceptance rate, and you talked about checking in within a year out. I do think that's a thing I'll probably continue to be interested in. I mean, I do think this is an exciting program, and there's lots of niches in the economy that we want to connect people up to jobs. And so this seems like a promising way to do that. But I will be curious for the data that can say half the people who were trained, if this was true, succeed and go on in the creative economy 1 year, 2 years later.
In fact, we have 2 former CCAPers that are currently employed at our agency.
So your percentages, it's promising. I guess also, everything, when I think about everything, I think about UDC. You have a partnership with Howard on the radio station. Any connection with UDC around this?
No, not today.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was allocated? Where are we in this fiscal year, FY25? How much funds were allocated? What does it look like?
So we are currently in discussions with the OES, and we're trying to identify again with the new administration. There is some uncertainty in terms of the labor departments, because the labor departments helps with the funding of this program. So with the whole DOGE thing, we're pretty confident we're going to have some form of the program. And so it's just we're finalizing what the resources are available to run it this year. But the current plan is to launch the program June 3rd, which I believe is a Monday. So that's when we're planning to start the program this year.
To start the program, the 3-week.
The 3-week module.
So you will soon be in that 8-week period where you're doing the selection process.
Correct.
But you want to get assurances, you want to feel
That we can
confident
pay
that
for
you're
it.
going to have the money
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
And for this year, so you don't have the same issue of the special purpose fund, or are you concerned that revenue to the special purpose fund will come in lower than you anticipated?
We don't anticipate, I don't want to speak out of school and outside of my purview, but we don't anticipate sort of that special purpose funding surprise this year. So that shouldn't be an issue, but the portion that DOES helps us with could be an issue.
Okay, wonderful. So let's stay in touch on this. I do, I'm
And
excited.
absolutely, and also if your office, if you have constituents, we'll give you information and links to the interest form, because there's actually still time until we actually literally begin the interview process. You can spread the word amongst your stakeholder group.
All right, wonderful. I want to talk about the rebate fund next. I don't know who the right person will be. I know you take a lot of pride in this and bringing new productions. I am going to be curious to hear why it is that you think that the rebates themselves are the difference. So if we do a certain amount of rebates and it produces $18.1 million of economic activity, how do we assure ourselves that it was the rebate that made the core difference? But maybe let's start with, how do the percentage amounts of our incentives compare to those in other jurisdictions?
Well, Councilmember, I'll start off by saying you're right. We do take tremendous pride in being able to attract big productions to the city, as well as ensuring that smaller filmmakers can also have an opportunity as well. We know that when we have more film and television productions in the city, it diversifies our workforce. It contributes to our economy. So we make sure that we are in constant contact with networks and production companies to continue to garner and attract, such as we're just coming off of Captain America's A Brave New World. That was released in theaters on the 14th of February. They went through our film rebate fund program. As I don't know if you've seen the production yet, but you see many scenes right here in our own backyard where we're sitting right now. So that brings not just the pride, but it also creates tourism for people who are able to see our city on the big screen. And it's not just a one-time hit. These are things that are mainstays forever. Those films will go on forever, and it'll remind people, and I don't want to give the film away if you have not seen it or our viewers have not seen it yet, but you'll see landmarks, and I'll even go as far as our cherry blossoms were not just a piece of this film, but was a character in this film. And people say, you know what, I think I'm going to go to DC for those cherry blossoms this year. So that is why we take so much pride in the film rebate fund and how we're able to attract new big productions, as well as returning customers, such as Amazon's Prime's Cross, which was a blockbuster on Amazon Prime. 40 million viewers within 20 days saw DC, not just downtown in our federal landmarks, but across all 8 wards, from the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge to Georgetown, Lincoln Theater, Howard Theater, and everything in between. So with that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, why it's so important on both ends, because of its economic impact for our city, for its ability to diversify our workforce, but also to create and increase tourism to our city. And for the nut and bolts of the actual film rebate fund, I will turn it to our Associate Director, Herbert Niles, to provide more details.
Hi. All right. So the philosophy behind, first I'll answer the first question about, well, how do we know this activity might not have happened anyway? One of the key questions in our application, we can send your team a copy of the application. There's a question, yes or no, will this project otherwise be filmed in the District of Columbia if you are not awarded a rebate? And so they have to answer that yes or no. So we have that information. So except for some projects, so the design of the program isn't just to bring in Hollywood productions or productions from Atlanta to incentivize productions, but we also try to designate a certain percentage of the program to local production companies, and specifically local production companies that are led by persons of color. So some of the projects we accept into the program are local productions, and they may have otherwise filmed here, but because they are bootstrap kind of companies, there are lots of instances where those companies wouldn't be able to do the film without the support, so it wouldn't have happened. The other instances, even though they're local production companies, they are given, a perfect example is Octet Productions, which filmed a project called Wake here in association with Tracy Edmonds Production Company. They were going to film it in Atlanta. And Tracy Edmonds, who had not yet worked here in the district, said, I'm used to filming in Atlanta. They give us some money. And so were it not for our rebate, that whole production, even though that they lived here, you know, Chuck and Bree West, they would have had to go down to Atlanta to film it. So it's a long way of saying there's a specific approach in us assessing and assigning awardees for this program that identifies that the project would not otherwise film here, right? So in terms of the design and the structure of the program, what's the percentages, why 30% for this category, why 10 for that category? So our general counsel, who was not able to be here in person today, formerly worked for BT Networks, as did I. And I always talk when I speak with the industry, is I used to be on the other side of this phone call. I used to work in production for BT Networks, and I would, you know, shop around the jurisdictions for the best deal for our productions. So I came to district government with real world experience from the other end. What does an incentive look like that's attractive to a company? What features are good, what are not? And so since I had experience with Mr. Cooper, who was the general counsel at BET when we were both there together, we got together and sort of assembled all of our experience on what works and what isn't, what's administratively attractive to a potential applicant and what isn't. And so I would say about 70% of incentive programs are not rebates, not cash rebates, but are called what tax credits. The reason why we chose rebates is that it's a much simpler process for the applicant, and they are able to retain more of their assigned credit. Because if you have to go the tax credit route, you have to sell your credit. If you're not a DC business, you have to sell your credit on a second party market, and you usually end up getting 70 and 90 cents on the dollar. So we thought that that was a special feature. So we decided specifically to make it a cash rebate, because that makes it very simple. In terms of the percentages and how we're competitive, our percentages are very aggressive versus other jurisdictions. And so even though we may not have the same amount in the program, our percentages are very attractive compared to other states. And there's a great resource. It's Cast and Crew has this really wonderful map on their website where you can click on a state and see what their percentages are, and you can kind of compare it to other states and jurisdictions. So I can send you guys that link and you can give it a look, but it gives you a good overview of what the competitive landscape is around the country.
That would be helpful if you sent that link, and thank you very much for that explanation. And it is interesting. I like the sophistication in the way that you're thinking about it, and the idea that if it's a tax credit and it gets sold on a secondary market, then 30% of those dollars are not going for the purpose that you want. So, but to the district, it's the same. Whether it's foregone tax revenue or expenditure, it's the same thing. I do, and this is an attitude that I do hope you bring to this. I do think we have a lot of assets that could draw films. And so we want to use a program like this to be the thing that made the difference, that pushed something over the line. I don't know 100% how to track that, but that would be the goal. A different thing, and I'll digress for a second, and there wasn't testimony about this, but we talked about it before, is the availability of a production studio, which also could be a thing that would be attractive, would help attract work to the district. Can you describe where we stand and on that? I understand that there is space that can be leased, but is there something we should be thinking about doing in that space that could strengthen our competitiveness to attract productions here?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Council Member. And we have too been tracking, especially here on the East Coast, other states and studios that they have been launching in recent times, including New Jersey has a huge studio that they recently launched in the past couple of years, as well as New York that just recently launched an additional studio in their space. Here in Washington, D.C., we have been engaging with the Deputy Mayor, Nina Albert, on locations that we could utilize to attract more film productions. She has referenced a few warehouses that would be available for use. We also look at some of the vacant buildings in downtown DC as an opportunity to use those spaces as well. And we have also been in communication with the owners of the former Black Entertainment Television headquarters that sits right behind us on that campus, for the ability to be able to utilize that space to attract more film productions and television productions to the city. If Lawrence Cooper, our general counsel, is on, I will also allow him the opportunity to go in greater detail about it, but I can tell you that those conversations continue and we are working robustly to make sure that we do have a sound stage or a studio where we can attract more productions to the city.
Wonderful. Mr. Cooper, is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't know if you're able to see me. Are you able to hear me?
I don't see you, but we can hear you. So you're sort of an interesting presence.
Sorry about that, and sorry that I'm unable to be with you today. One thing I wanted to indicate about the former BET studio, there was a production company that actually was operating the studio. So there had been some periods of time where there was some activity there and that we could offer it. I think a combination of things probably happened during the period of the pandemic. We know things were pretty much shut down, and then you had the strikes that went on with the entertainment guilds, and the company that was there was no longer able to sustain. We hear you and we understand, and I think, the challenge of building infrastructure is making sure that, you've got, the facilities for the filming, that you've got the workforce here to really support that and to take full advantage of the economic impact of these productions. And so we're trying to work all of those angles. And I can say to you that we have dialogue right now that, if there were a need for that studio, and knowing that at this point, that studio is probably more of a shell. And so any productions that come in there are going to have to rent the equipment. That happens a lot of times anyway. But you should know that we do have dialogue going on. And if that facility, which is probably about 18,000 square feet in the main studio, was attractive to someone, we have mechanisms to ensure that we're matching. And as Director Foster indicated, and this has happened a lot in jurisdictions where there's a lot of office space open, that there have been films that are filming, because there's just, the leasing of office spaces down, and a lot of those buildings are vacant. So we're definitely looking at that. Want you to know that, it makes, it's very important to us and makes sense for us to continue to have those dialogues. But we're trying to sort of look broadly at everything in terms of this infrastructure building and getting entities, and not just for one production, but opening offices here. The district becoming sort of another one of the filming locations. And you should be happy to know, and Mr. Niles didn't say this, but we have a fairly good reputation with a number of the major networks and production companies, even though we do have a smaller cash rebate. So the foundation is there, and we definitely want to build on it.
Thank you for that. And it struck me, do we have any film schools here in the District of Columbia?
Well, several of our local universities have film majors. American University, for example, has probably one of the best nonfiction graduate film programs. And so pretty much every university, I know Howard has a master's in film, GW does, Georgetown does. So film school per se, I'm not sure how you might define it, but I think all of our major local universities have a master's program in filmmaking of some form or fashion.
I guess the reason that I wondered it is if there was a facility, if there were other entities that could be partners in that, and if there were film schools, maybe those are folks. Has there been any exploration for partnerships in trying to get a film studio or a production studio launched in the district?
Well, the whole concept that Mr. Cooper mentioned is previously another entity was in control of that space. And since they're now recently defunct, and as we're talking about, we're looking at all those possibilities, because as Mr. Cooper mentioned, when you open up a space like that, you want it to remain a going concern, right? And so you have to diversify the revenue streams and the use cases so that you're not sitting around waiting for a production to come in order for it to be viable. So you raise a point that's one of the business activities that could make it more sustainable if you're able to offer up that unique size and space as like on-the-job examples. It's one thing to be at American University and be in a classroom or a small, studio that you have at the university, but to be able to have like a class, a cohort that goes to a major sound stage, and you can apply some of what you're doing to an actual real-life example. That's just one of the many uses of an active soundstage complex would be.
And again, I'll stay on my theme when I think about these projects of linking folks to workforce UDC. So there was one of the qualified investments for a rebate in 24 was an infrastructure investment. So can you describe that and how that came to be?
Yeah, this is very exciting, and it comes to working with some of our other partners. So one of the goals of the infrastructure feature of the program is to attract businesses from outside of the jurisdiction, right? And so we want to matriculate businesses in this space to the district to build the economy. We also want to retain local businesses that might move somewhere else, right? So the infrastructure can be used either for an outside entity to move to the district or to have an existing company upgrade their technical studio so that they're competitive with the industry. In this particular case, the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development worked very hard to recruit and attract the Atlantic 10 Conference to move their headquarters from the Hampton Roads area of Virginia up to the district. So as part of the attraction package for them to move their headquarters to DuPont Circle was the incentive was applied to them building out their media center at their new headquarters. So the aspect of this infrastructure rebate was a key piece in attracting the Atlantic 10 to move their headquarters. Otherwise, they may have stayed in Virginia.
Wonderful, thank you. In the response to pre-hearing question 44, I think you noted that the rebate projects employed 98 residents in FY24 and paid them $268,000, which looks to me like, a little under $3,000 per employee. Am I misreading that? Is the idea that they were here for a short time and people worked for some number of hours, and it's not that it's created 98 full-time positions, it just employed 98 residents and gave them part-time or temporary work that added up to 268,000? Is that getting it?
That we're going to get our final numbers. So when we put in we're still working on our final report with our consultant, right? So those numbers could change. But if you look at a table of the number of hires in a given year versus the compensation, it varies fiscal year to fiscal year. And we do like to look at, sort of the aggregate of FY16 to FY24. Our estimate is $7.7 million for about 2,062 jobs. So that's more than $3,000 a job. But to your point, some of those jobs might be an extra, but some of those jobs might be an editor. So for a particular job, one person might have made $1,000 for being an extra for 3 days, while an editor may have made $20,000. So it's kind of an average. And so looking at the aggregate is a little bit of a better picture than an individual year. But it was a little bit low in that percentage in 24, but we're still waiting for information on one more project to come in, so that number might change.
Okay, that's helpful. I mean, it's a $1.4 million program, and so creates $270,000 in wages, and then the point is many other benefits that flow from it, but just trying to understand how it fits. All right. Thank you very much on that. I think I'd like to before I move to the 202 Creates Residency Program, back on the public access stuff, the public access is on cable. Mm-hmm. Is it available in any other way? How else can district residents see those channels? Are they on the web? Can it be done as broadcast? How can we make sure that as many people as possible have access to the public access?
Absolutely, Council Member. You can watch our productions, our programs on our cable networks. They are also available online. They're available on YouTube. And we also have our streaming network that was launched during COVID, DCE, the DC Entertainment streaming service. So you have a variety of ways that you can watch our programming, our original programming, as well as mayoral press conferences, council hearings, and so forth. You do have other ways that you can watch if you do not have cable and you are not watching via TV.
But not broadcast.
I'm sorry?
What, not broadcast? We can't broadcast it through the airwaves that you pick up by an old style antenna?
No.
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 Is it that we're prohibited from doing that, or that it's cost prohibitive to do that?
That I would need to circle back with you on. I'm not sure we have that detail with us today.
And on the radio, That's on the dial.
That's on the dial. If you were to get in your car right now, you could turn to 96.3. And if you flipped it 4 times, you get to the HD4 dial and you would find us on the dial.
Oh, interesting. And you said about the radio that one of the things that it has is video podcasts, which surprised me for
Yes.
the radio. So is that because the radio is also available online, and online you can see the video podcast? How does that work?
That's correct. We are on the dial at 96.3 HD4. But you can also find us online as well at dcradio.gov. And inside our studios, and that's in line with most studios to date. We do have cameras inside for podcast purposes so that we are modern and in line with all of the other stations across the country. We make sure, because we know that everyone is also, as much as they're listening, they are visual as well. So we wanted to make sure that we are as modern as possible, that we are in line with all of our commercial radio stations and providing the same amenities.
All right, wonderful. Let's turn now to the 202 Creates Residency program, and which is another intriguing program trying to support entrepreneurs getting into the business. But help me, and it also sounds like an intriguing curriculum, but maybe spend a couple of minutes talking about what the curriculum is for that program. And there's a reference that there were nearly 30 graduates of the program. Is that 30 graduates in FY24? Is that 30 graduates over a period of years? Give me a little more of a feel for what it is, what
Sure.
the curriculum is, and then the numbers served.
So the number referenced is for fiscal year 24. And let me also highlight a couple of graduates who have come through the 202 Creates residency program. Tommy McFly on NBC4 was a 202 Creates resident, as well as Britt Waters on WJLA and News Channel 8 also came through this residency program. This residency program is established to include an 11-week based curriculum. It's there to help creative entrepreneurs launch their businesses and be successful in their businesses. Within that curriculum, we are connecting them with government as well as business leaders so they can learn more about everything to make their business successful: legal, accounting, marketing, licensing, networking with peers, and as well as mentoring and peer counseling.
And so so it's 11 weeks, and on the other program, which was 3 weeks, it was 1 instructor, maybe 2 instructors. Here you have 30 people in a cohort. Is that 11 weeks, 40 hours a week, multiple instructors? How does that work?
So over the several weeks, we will have guest speakers who will come in and speak to the cohort in person and virtually as well. And that can be, again, on an array of different areas of business. And that's over a couple of hours each week.
And is that what the program is, a couple of hours each week, or is it like the other one where it sounded like almost classroom for 3
No,
weeks?
this is just a few hours each week.
I see.
Yeah.
And how many staff are assigned to manage that program?
Our Creative Affairs Office has 3 individuals who work hands-on with the participants of the residency program. We also had co-working days where they were in person at different locations, because while we wanted to make sure that we are preparing the participants, we also wanted to make sure that we were supporting spaces and places downtown during the past few years, and making sure that that was a way to also market our city and our businesses as well.
So, and then this is a 3-person office. This is one of the things that
This
they
is just
do.
one of the number of different things that they touch every day.
And in 2024, it was 30, but is that typical? Is that?
Roughly somewhere between 25 and 30 participants, correct?
Uh, And did the participants receive any kind of stipend? Or how, it doesn't sound like it, they could have a job at the time that they're doing it. Are the guest speakers in the programs, are they during the workday, or are they in the evening? And how do we ensure that, do they receive a stipend?
They do not receive a stipend. However, those special guest speakers do come in to speak with them again in person or virtually. It is done during the workday. So you are correct that you could have your job or your business in this particular instance while you are participating in the residency program.
And then 30, how many people apply, and how do you decide who is selected for this program?
We try to include as many that inquire about the program. We try to include as many as possible.
So it's less, on the other program that we talked about, you had a landing pad for them, and so you're limited by how big that landing pad is. Here, there's no assurance of anything that follows. This is for people who might want to establish their own business.
They're establishing their own business, that's correct.
And so, and pretty much anybody who applies can be a part of it?
Absolutely. We try to, if you are interested and you inquire, we do our due diligence to make sure that any and everyone have a seat at the table in this program.
And so it lasts for 11 weeks, but it's a episodic thing where there might be a get together with an instructor, or there might be a guest speaker or something like that. How much does it cost to do? How much does each residency cost?
Well, you know, the great thing about this residency program is that it does not cost the participants and the guest speakers who come in, normally because they have a heart for what it is that they do and wanting to help others. So it's at no cost. We've been able to move this program forward without pretty much any funding behind it.
Is that right? So it's just the staff time?
Yes, correct.
And for that office, about what percentage of the staff time do you think is devoted to this as opposed to other functions that they're doing?
Well, it could depend. If we're going into September, which is what we like to call 202 Creates Month, that can be an incredibly busy month for our team. But I would say that during that the time of that cohort, they're pretty much hands-on with that program. That's pretty much their number one priority.
For that
period of time.
Period. And how do you measure impact on this? You know, you referenced a couple of people who have been successful, but do you have other ways? Do you track the people who participated so you have a sense of whether or not they've been able to establish businesses? What sort of data is there that validates that this is an effective program in your mind?
Well, the great thing about this program and for the staff who are involved with it, we are in constant contact, not just while you're in the program, but even after. And oftentimes, the graduates, if you will, from the program come back to talk and to engage with the current residency participants. So we're able to keep in contact. We learn more about what they're doing, where they are, what they've achieved, what they've accomplished. It's not just after 11 weeks, we're okay. You know, we stay in contact with the participants.
Okay, and again, the only cost of it is the time of those staff people during the period of it.
That's correct.
So I'm going to turn to the GO-GO support program, which you referenced in your testimony, the concert at the Howard Theater, which I attended. I'm sorry I missed you. It was a great event.
Likewise.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And DPR and the libraries all teamed for that. For the GO-GO support program, how much was allocated in FY25 for that program?
So every year we have $1 million towards the Go-Go people to support the Go-Go People's Plan. Through that plan, we are able to support businesses that are creating activations and pop-ups and concerts, as well as businesses that are working to amplify the culture, the music, and the sound. So we take that funding to support those activations, to support those businesses, as well as to support curriculum within our schools. Duke Ellington, Georgetown University, Howard University are just a few examples of how we've been able to utilize that funding. We have also worked to make sure that the funding amplifies the music and the sound and the culture, not just here in Washington, D.C., and not just nationally, but internationally. We have ensured that the music and the sound and the culture has extended beyond our borders to various continents, including Africa, South America, and so forth. So we make sure that Go-Go is the sound of our city, but that the sound of our city is known globally.
And so $1 million, and so where are you so far this year in terms of your spending of those dollars?
So we are accepting applications as we speak. We've had a few big events that have taken place, but again, those applications we're in real time right now while they're coming in.
Is it so it's not that you start at the beginning of the fiscal year, you have a process and maybe the bulk of the money gets spent further deeper into the fiscal year, that at this point you're gathering applications?
We established it early in the fiscal year, and by this time we're starting to open up the Go-Go portal so that those businesses that need that support are able to apply to tell us more about whatever their event is or their initiative is, and we're able to provide a form of a grant or creative economy support.
And then, so do you have a list? Do I have a list of all of the grants that were given in FY24, for example, under that program?
We can absolutely get you a spreadsheet with all of those.
Okay, I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
Is something like the event that I was at this
That
last
would be a
weekend,
great example. Correct. Yep.
your contribution to that would have come out of this fund.
Absolutely. We all put funding behind it. DC Public Library also has $1 million as well that's used to preserve the Go-Go music history and culture. So all of the agencies come together to try our best way to amplify the music and the culture.
So you might get an application for that event, and you might work with the libraries and DPR and say, we'll support it to this extent if you'll support it to that extent, or how does that work where it's a joint?
Right. So one like that was one that we led as a government because it is the anniversary of the legislation that the mayor and the council put forth 5 years ago. So we come together, and this was our second time doing that actually, where we came together with DC Public Library, and DPR also came in as well. So we'll split it up so that, we can all take a portion of the funding that goes on to lead an effort such as this.
And DPR, do they also have dedicated funding around Go-Go, or it's just general funding that
General
they have?
funding on their end.
Does like Chuck Brown Day, is that DPR funding?
Chuck Brown Day is from DPR.
And you don't participate in?
We assist with other areas, but not necessarily the funding. We work with 3 different organizations receive funding when Go-Go was signed into law: OCTFME, DC Public Library, and Events DC.
I see. And so that $1 million, that was in the law.
Yes.
Making Go-Go the official music of the district. I see. And Events DC wasn't part of the Howard Theater thing, was it?
Not this year, but we have worked with, and we continue to work with Events DC on other events and festivals and concerts to amplify the music.
So if you're getting a whole lot of applications now, what's your criteria? How do you evaluate those applications? And do you get applications seeking $1 million, or do you get applications seeking $10 million and you have to cull it down? What's the experience there?
Well, everyone who applies for a GO-GO support is a business. They have to have a tax ID number. They must have clean hands. They must apply in the vendor portal to make sure that, you know, they do establish everything that any other business that does work with the government establishes. Once they have established that vendor profile, they go through the GO-GO portal. They submit an application that tells us about their event, the objective, some of their past events, the success rate of that, why it's important, and they will ask for a specific amount. It depends on what that event is going to be. What it will entail will be based upon the creative economy support that we are able to provide for each one of those events.
And is it typical that pretty much anybody who applies gets a grant, or do you have many more applications than you have the ability to fund?
Oh, no, we sit down with each one. We come together in a conference room as a group. We look at it. We examine who they are, what they've done, their accomplishment and success rates. If it's employing DC residents, we have a number of different criteria that's in place to make sure that, you know, it's not just, you know, for lack of better words, we just want to make sure that it is a legitimate event, a legitimate business that is working as we are to continue to amplify and to support the businesses in the city.
No, I hear you. But I just am curious how popular of a application it is. I mean, are you able to essentially meet all of the requests, or are there ones that you aren't able to
No, we meet all the requests, and you are right. It is a very popular program. We talked about it while we were at the Howard Theater so that people know about that, that the GO-GO portal is there for them to be able to apply for support. We also make sure that it is in our newsletters that we send out every month so that people are always aware that the GO-GO portal is open. If you are a small business that's looking for support, how they can apply. And we've also been on site physically to give groups details about what the program entails.
Have you ever had to leave money on the table that you didn't have enough
No.
applications?
No.
You use the money.
We can absolutely always make sure that money is expended every single fiscal year.
And then who does it? How many staff are devoted to managing this program?
So that comes through our creative affairs participants, that staff of 3 that we were just talking about. That also is our legal team, our general counsel and his legal team coming together as well.
And then about how much of the time for the creative office is this program?
I would say that's probably about 50% of their time.
50%?
Yeah.
Because it's a year-round.
Oh, it's a year round. And again, it's a very popular program.
And how do you assess the effectiveness of it? This is less a like job creation and more of a, is the effectiveness judged by the reach of go-go music? How do you evaluate whether or not this $1 million is making a difference?
Well, each applicant is different. So let's give the example of sending the Future Band to Cuba. Correct. We'll use that as an example. We're taking GO-GO beyond the borders of the district. We are creating that partnership with another country where they come here and we've gone there. Again, this is another increasing tourism mechanism. We've done the same with some of our acts going to other countries and continents. So the cost can be a little bit different in regards to that. We know the impact is different there. If we know that someone someone is giving a concert that could be for 10,000 people here in Washington, D.C. We know that when people come out for a concert, they are going to eat, they are going to consume, and they're going to make purchases. So we know that when we support those type of events, that it's not just the event itself, but it's everything, the entirety, the ecosystem of an event, including the hospitality portion of it.
And do you, I mean, you know that generally, but do you try to calculate it in some way, or is it simply that unfortunately at the Howard Theater event, when I was there were a lot of people outside.
Right.
Because the event was free.
Right.
But lots of people who came out probably spent money in the U Street corridor.
That's correct.
But it'd be hard to measure.
Yeah.
Do you try to measure it, or?
So what we've been working to do, similar to the Film Rebate Fund, where we have the Strategic Impact Advisors who have set up a model to track the economic impact of our films and television productions, we are working to stand up a similar metric system for our activations and for those who do go through our portals to achieve creative economy support.
So it takes me to the next thing, because in your testimony, you refer to a number of go-go activations in 2024. And can you talk to me about, I mean, maybe the Howard Theater one is one of them, but what are other things like that? And then how do you measure the impact of those things?
So we could look at the barbecue battle, for example. We know that when we bring go-go to that stage, there are 80,000 attendees that are coming downtown that we have entertainment for. Another example of that would be go-go at Golden Triangle, which Golden Triangle has requested year after year because it draws foot traffic and people to the Golden Triangle sector. So those are just a couple of examples of the number of activations that we lead and support within a fiscal year.
And do we have a list of all of the different activations that have happened? Or
yes, we do.
I mean, is it part of the response to pre-hearing questions, or you have?
We have them internally. I don't think they were in the appendixes, but we can get that to you.
That would be useful.
Absolutely.
And you referenced one of the ones that intrigued me, which was the barbecue. Love barbecue. But I was puzzling a little bit about it because Giant is the sponsor of that event, and there's lots of big name corporate sponsors that are part of that. And so that seems like a thing that would happen regardless of our contribution of city dollars. But I guess I'm starting to assume that part of the reason that you're contributing to that is because go-go has a presence there and you're trying to reach an audience. But help me understand why we need to contribute to Giant and what it is that our gain or the gain for go-go is through our participation in that event, including through funding?
Well, several reasons. Yes, Giant would be it's their event. However, when we are creative economy supporters, we are able to bring our DC talent to a big stage. We're also able to market entertainment and our entertainment office to 80,000 people who may not be aware of what this entertainment office does and what we represent. It allows us to market not just to our residents, but to tourists to let them know what we're doing here in Washington, D.C. We are able to have our logos and our signage all over these big events. So it's not just the talent portion of it, but it is a marketing tool as well.
So it kind of applies in the same way you referenced the presence at Commanders games.
Correct.
And so I guess, the Commanders are a big institution, and what we should pay for and what the Commanders should pay for, bigger questions about that are out there, but to what extent the barbecue, Giant and Pepsi is one of the sponsors. You'd hope that they would want to have go-go there and
If
would
they
pay
know
for
about
it.
go-go. We cannot assume that they know about go-go, but we want to make sure if you're coming to our city, that you know about the sounds of our city, that you know about this culture in our city. We do not assume that just because someone is a returning festival or so forth, that they are aware of this, this music and this culture. That is why we use this opportunity to amplify our artists, our acts, the culture, the history of the music.
All right. I mean, it's in a certain way, these things are, the mission is to promote the music. And these are big audiences.
Correct.
And so there's a willingness to invest in order to reach that audience.
Yes.
And what's the magnitude of the investment, for example, at the barbecue or at a Commanders game? Is it we pay for the band?
We would pay for the band, that's correct. So let's use the Commanders game for an example. We may pay a band to play at the Women of Washington Day because, you know, our Washington DC is led by a great woman. So we might have paid for a Belladonna band to play there, which is an all-women's band, correct? So we have that there. 80,000 attendees come to a Washington Commanders game. Not all of them are DC residents. We have people coming to support their teams as well. So we want to make sure that we are reaching audiences that would not necessarily know about go-go. We want to make sure that we are taking go-go outside of Washington, DC. We want to make sure that not only are we preserving the history of this music and this culture, but that we are amplifying it. We are working to always look at non-traditional ways of making sure that people outside of this city understand the music and the culture and the history and look at it as gives it the respect, the same respect that they give R&B and jazz and hip hop. We want to make sure that go-go is something on the tip of their tongues as well.
So, and then all of this is done using the $1 million, or is this also additional dollars?
No, this is just using the $1 million that's been placed within our agency to amplify the music.
And then again, the creative office, the 3 people in the creative office maybe was touching with the legal office and others, but
everything must go through our legal office. They have contracts that are drafted through our legal team before we send that out to whoever the applicant might be.
But that's 50% of the time of those people are devoted to managing this $1 million that gets used in these different kinds of ways to promote go-go and in lots of different ways.
That's correct.
Okay. Gear shift. So there was a reference to your work with the George Washington University Community Counseling Services on the Care for Creatives initiative to provide mental health services to creatives. And it intrigued me because mental health services often, you know, the more natural place, my first reaction was a more natural place is the Department of Behavioral Health. So why is this with your office as opposed to with DBH?
What we've done is establish specifically during the pandemic, council member, when we recognize the effects that the pandemic had on mental health, which is why Care for Creatives was established. We also understand that everyone may not have insurance and may not even be thinking about how they can address their mental health needs. This is why that particular partnership was established with George Washington University. And similar arts organizations have programs that are geared toward mental health, including the Kennedy Center. They have a program called Sound Health. that is in conjunction with the National Institutes of Health and a number of others. So we wanted to make sure we were in line with arts institutions that are making sure that those in the creative space had a way to get their mental health needs addressed on a pay-as-you-go basis that is completely confidential.
So pay as you go, through insurance or without insurance?
Without insurance.
Without insurance.
Yeah.
And is it that they pay as they go or that you pay? How does it work? And do you have kind of an arrangement with GW where they will see people through your program and then they'll be reimbursed through your program? Is that the concept?
That's correct. We established that with George Washington University. If someone wanted to see a clinician, they would go. We know that everyone does not have health insurance. We know that there are creative businesses that cannot afford health insurance. So we did not want to take for granted that everyone in the creative space had the same accesses that even we have here in government. So we wanted to make sure that we were creating an opportunity for them to have their mental health needs addressed. And we know that everyone, especially during the pandemic, at a time where business in the entertainment space was down, quite frankly, that they did have this resource and this tool at their disposal.
But it continues now.
It continues now, correct.
And how do they know that somebody is coming for this program, and how is, because confidentiality is critical, so how do they know, how does George Washington know that the people who are coming to them are the target, your target, and how do you know that what you're paying for is for folks who are in the community that you're focused on?
We do tremendous marketing around the program within OCTFME as well as George Washington University. When those clients come to George Washington University, they are referencing the Care for Creatives program through our entertainment office.
And then in the process, I guess George Washington would be able to tell whether or not these are bona fide people in this creative sector.
That's correct.
And it's pay as you go, so the cost of the program, is there a limit on the number of sessions that a person will be?
Not.
So it could be 3 times a week for an extended period of time. And how do you track the cost? How much money is set aside for this program?
$10,000.
$10,000, which is, I mean, depending on what they're charging, it doesn't go very far. How do you know where you're at with it, whether it's about to be used up or not?
We're in contact with our partners at George Washington University, so they're able to let us know how many people have used it, how much funding has been utilized for it. It seems to be a very successful program, and again, because of mental health needs, we don't take it for granted. So we want to always make sure that program is funded and marketed accordingly.
And is it ever been the case that there's money left on the table? It's not that much money, but is there money left on the table at the end of the year?
We've never been aware of any funding left on the table.
And this is one where, tracking outcomes is in a setting of confidentiality. It's hard to do, but what makes you feel like this is successful? Are you hearing from people? What makes you think that this investment is paying dividends in the community?
Because we hear from some of the participants. Some of the participants have even been as vocal as coming on our programs to talk about what has taken place in their lives and why this program was important for them. Some who have been through this program have experienced tremendous loss, especially during the time of the pandemic, but even outside of that. And some of them have been comfortable enough to share their stories of what's taken place in their own lives, and how meaningful this program was and why they supported and how grateful they were that this program was there for them to take advantage of. We have a series of programs around Care for Creatives that airs on our networks as well as on our social media, because, many people understand that sharing is caring. And even though their issue may have been confidential, they see a greater value in sharing their stories to possibly help the next person who may be experiencing similar challenges.
Okay, great. Another project of the Creative Affairs Office is the Mayor's Arts Awards
Yes.
each year. So, I mean, it looks like a lovely event, but help me understand how much it costs and what you think, what are the ways in which you think that it is delivering dividends for district residents? And I guess my sense is it happens at the end of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that, and you can determine how many funds you have that you can devote to it. But talk to me about that event and why you see it as being a force multiplier and a benefit to district residents.
Absolutely. Well, and as a matter of fact, we're coming up on the 40th year of the Mayor's Arts Awards this September. And that is actually a budget line in the budget, in our city's budget, to support the annual Mayor's Arts Awards. This is not just a multiplier, but it is the greatest platform from the DC government to ensure that those inside of our city as well as outside of our city know the tremendous talent and the rich culture of our city. When you're looking at the Mayor's Arts Awards, you see everything from ballet and dance to art and expression and tap and go-go and jazz and every genre of music and the arts. You also are introduced to people who are a force in the arts, philanthropists, authors, filmmakers, and so forth. So that is the biggest event of the year, in my view, because it is the mayor's platform of excellence in arts and entertainment and showing the diversity of the arts and culture in our city, not just for one specific sector, but for the rich talent and culture of our city across all 8 wards.
And so, what is the price tag for the event, and how much of it do you bear? To what extent is the DC Commission on the Arts also a contributor for that event?
DC Commission on the Arts, I'm thinking about last year, they have contributed around $30,000. In our budget, I believe we have $352,000. Cassandra, correct me if I'm wrong, $352,000 that's designated in support of the Mayor's Arts Awards.
So you're the driver. Are there other
We are the
contributors?
driver, correct.
And do you film it?
We do film it, and it airs on our networks as well as on our DCE streaming service and on YouTube as well.
And on all of those different platforms, it's another digression, but to what extent can you track viewings?
Well, with our PEG channels, we are looking to find ways to track viewership. At this time, there is not a way, and we have even been in contact with other states to see how they are tracking viewership. And we understand that Nielsen is not utilized when it comes to government programming, but we are looking at ways, and we're working with other states and jurisdictions to see if there are creative ways to track the viewership.
And what about on the other platforms, like if it's on YouTube or if it's, you can track views there?
YouTube, we can track, correct, but we know the bulk comes from our television networks.
It may be at a different time. I'll circle back. I'd be curious, what's hitting? What is it that enables you to reach the most people? And it may be, I am always astonished when people stop me on the street and say, oh, they see me on TV all the time. So I do know that your stations are being watched.
That's good to hear.
And it may be harder to track that, but what's hitting and what isn't hitting would be interesting
Sure.
for all of us to know. Talk to me about the 202 Creates Month kickoff celebration. That's another big event that you guys did at DC Water.
Mhm.
What benefit how much did that cost? What benefit did you see from that event?
And that also is a line item within our budget as well. We know that the kickoff is again another opportunity to showcase our histories, our city's history and talent and culture. This year, I'll give you a greater example of the way that we're looking to take that globally. We want to make sure that we are making it a bit more impactful. We're framing it something similar to a South by Southwest model. But the kickoff celebration is something that has gone on annually every year since its inception in 2016. And that reception has drawn any number of art businesses and art business leaders from all walks of life. This past year at DC Water, and I swear you couldn't have had a rainier night for it, but it still drew a huge crowd to our DC Water headquarters, even bringing out one of the presidents of Monumental Sports, Zach Leonsis, because he saw the value in what we were working on and doing in the arts realm and wanted to come out and support us in this endeavor. It also gave a platform to his dancers in a venue that was non-traditional. You look for the dance team in the Capital One Arena. We gave them another platform to showcase that dance team and any number of other artists, art activations and so forth. They get a voice when they come to our 202 Creates. You know, bigger names, they have platforms. We want to make sure that we are giving a huge platform to the lesser knowns as well as the more prominent. We want to make sure that the mayor is amplifying those who comprise the creative economy. In our city, we have 56,000 workers that comprise the creative economy. They contribute $14 billion to our city's revenue. And that is anyone from our theater workers to our painters and sculptors, to our photographers, and even down to our cosmetology, to our graphic artists and so forth. So when we kick off what we call 202 Creates Month and that 202 Creates celebration, it is a platform to ensure that the most prominent and even the up and comings have a voice and have a platform to showcase their talents and showcase why what they do matters.
So I appreciate that. I'm struck that I go to a lot of these events. I love these kinds of things, and my wife jokes that I would go to the opening of an envelope, but when I go to these events, I often see your logo, I see Events DC's logo, I see the Commission on Arts and Humanities logo. Talk to me about how that kind of partnership works. And one of the things when you're talking about, you know, a kickoff for 202 Creates might be something bigger, you know, that you want to grow that. I'm struck by in conversations with Reggie Van Lee, who's the chair of the board of the Commission on Arts and Humanities. He has an idea of an Art Basel kind of thing. And so then is that 202, is that in 202 Create? How do those things fit together?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking, I'm just curious what the partnerships look like, or how it works, and how we could be encouraging the various entities in the creative economy to leverage each other's resources. I'm thinking the DC Jazz Fest.
Yes.
I don't know what you do around, I don't think of you as the driver of the DC Jazz Fest, but I don't know what you do to promote that. The Film Fest DC, which I've have loved for many, many years. How do folks in the agencies touching the creative economy try to work together?
Well, the great thing about the agencies within the creative economy, we are friends as well as partners as far as amplifying the arts and culture, which is why you will see OCTFME, Events DC, and the Commission on Arts and Humanities coming together, because we know we're stronger together when we are amplifying the stages and the platforms for arts and culture here in the city. You mentioned the DC Jazz Fest. I'm going to let Herbie get in on this as well. The DC Jazz Fest is not led by OCTFME, but we are a creative economy supporter of the DC Jazz Fest. We know that is, once again, a driver for tourism in the city. We know that it brings out thousands over the course of a weekend. And we know that based on our investment into that event, the return on investment and what that brings back to our city. And with that, I will turn that over to Herbie.
Yeah, I would just want to make mention that part of actually the DC Rebate Fund has been a supporter of DC Jazz Fest. One of the qualifications to be a qualifying project is that the event or a portion of the event is filmed for broadcast or distribution on some platform, whether it be a traditional analog theater platform, whether it be online, whether it be through streaming. So we, as an agency, have been part of the team along with DEMPED and along with Events DC. Now, there's no coordinated support, but we are aware of the support that each of us provides these events. And so we're really proud that the Rebate Fund has been a part of that. And Tony Gittens Festival, which is one of my favorite festivals of the year, Film Fest DC has been a recipient of our general sponsorship program for general creative events or programming. It's kind of a micro grant program between $2,000 and $10,000 between the size and impact of the program. And so Tony's festival has been supported by OCTFME for, I believe, at least since I've been running that particular program, at least 8 years. So we work with Tony very closely. We also help him promote and amplify the festival each year on our social media platforms, which are very active. And we also try to highlight a filmmaker that's programmed from the festival each year as a Filmmaker of the Month, which is a feature we have on our website, and we drop press releases, and we also promote them on our social media platforms. So as you may know, Tony has a program within Film Fest DC that is a spotlight of DC films and filmmakers. So we are really active in amplifying those local filmmakers and getting them noticed. So yeah, we work with Tony and very closely on this festival.
So I'll plant a seed. The Film Fest DC, two things. Film Fest DC started at UDC, and the Performing Arts Center at UDC is not equipped to show a major motion picture. It wouldn't take a lot to equip it and bring Film Fest DC back to UDC, which I think would be magical. Also say, well, this is for Tony Gittens, not for you, but whether or not that's a thing that could be in your purview as a way of promoting film, I'll just plant that seed. The other thing, in terms of coordination between the agencies working with the creative economy, a thing I'm focused on is 2026 and the 250th anniversary of the country. we have World Pride first, I'm sure, I hope you all are coordinating around World Pride, but these are two opportunities where we're going to have a lot of people in the city and an opportunity to amplify all of our different facets of the arts. All right, back to my list of questions. My expectation is that I have a page and a half left, but we'll get there. I think we'll be done by 12:30, and Ms. Hightower, then we'll give you the opportunity for you to testify. Um, uh, In your response to pre-hearing question 38, you say that you work with customers to help them understand their bills, correct inaccuracies, and generally help customers get more out of their cable plans. How many customers received this kind of technical assistance in FY24 and FY25 to date? And how many FTEs spend at least part of their time on this sort of work? Where is that housed in the agency? And how busy is it? How many people are devoted to it?
Sure. That is housed, council member, with our legal and regulatory affairs team. Those that are devoted to cable, approximately 2 individuals. You heard one of our public witnesses reference one, Mabel Gist, on our team. And they are, it's very nominal as far as the number of calls that come in with cable inquiries or inquiries about bills and so forth. But on our team, what we are able to do is talk through our customers if they have any concerns. Many people may not be aware that if you look on your bills, you will find OCTFME's phone number if you have any concerns. So we do get a couple of calls here and there, probably a little bit more when there is inclement weather and people have some issues or concerns, but we are able to address them. We have amazing people who are on that team. Some that our customers know on a first name basis, such as our earlier public witness, because they have been with the agency for such a long time, have also been with our cable agencies as well, and know this area inside out, and have been hands-on with our customers. So they're able to address and mitigate their issues pretty swiftly.
All right, wonderful. Your Appendix B lists a number of contractors that you employed, several dozen contractors that you put in FY24. And I wonder if you could talk to me about what it was, why you needed to, what you used these contractors for, why it was that you needed to use these contractors. And there's one group, All Pro Services, that comes up a number of times at numbers on the order of $100 an hour. But can you talk to me about when it is that you go out to contractors, why it is that you go out to contractors, and maybe specifically on the All Pro?
Absolutely.
Services.
So our All Pro services support our programming and production team within our agency. They are recruited to assist with covering any number of mayoral press conferences, government events, and so forth. They also are assisting with council hearings such as this. They're working in our master control rooms as well. They're helping with the editing of different programs that are shown on our PEG channels. So we call on them for support if we may have a videographer who's out ill, if we know we have a hearing that's going into the wee hours of the night, but we also have other government events that are taking place on evenings and weekends. All Pro supports those type of things that are happening that we want to make sure that we have great coverage for in our programming department. So that could be anywhere from a videographer to someone in master control, to our editors, and even down to some producers.
And so that's, you have staff that does this, or the public access stations
Yes.
have staff that do this, so this is sort of flex staff for you in a
Correct.
sense? And it kind of is like, I mentioned my sister-in-law's brother who does sound, and he gets a call from CBS. They
Yeah.
have something where they need somebody, they need additional people, so it's that kind of a role.
Mhm.
What's the magnitude of the payments? I guess I could add them up if I looked, but how much during the course of the year do you think you're paying All Pro services?
Well, we have an ongoing contract with All Pro as an example, and we do utilize any number of different positions within that particular contract, again, to support. I'll give you an example on, let's say, a day like today. You may have 2 videographers at a mayoral press conference. You may have another videographer who's going out to identify some of the other events that are taking place, going through walkthroughs this week. You may also have a videographer who is out in the field shooting B-roll to support some of our original programming on our station. We may also have those in our master control room. You have to have a rotation going there, especially when you have a day where there is a long hearing, where you can make sure that you have enough staff where if people just need breaks in the course of a day, that we have someone who can come and fill that in. I always invite people to come and experience our master control room to see, what it takes, even in a hearing setting such as this, making sure that one camera's on you, one camera's on me at all times, that they never sway away from and capture everything that's taking place within these productions. It is so critical what they do and why we need that additional support. So that supports what you see there through our contract with All Pro.
So I guess there is the list of contracts, and we can add it. Or, oh no, excuse
Bless
me.
you.
Actually, the list of contracts has hourly rates, but it doesn't have a total for the total cost of the contracts. I think if that's a thing that we can follow up on to get the total cost of those, that would be helpful.
We can definitely get that for you.
All right. It looks like you all have spent about $5,000 sending staff to the Roots Picnic Festival, which is a music festival, which this year includes D'Angelo, Gorilla, and Jeezy. Glorilla. Okay. Clearly, I've not been to this festival. So why? What did you see as the benefit of sending folks to this festival?
Well, we also had DC-based artists who also performed at that festival. That festival takes place annually in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We not only send staff, we do tremendous marketing because of the close proximity to Washington, D.C. That specific festival draws about 100,000 people in Philadelphia. And we like to make sure that they know, hey, Washington, D.C. is only an hour and a half away, a gas tank away. We have festivals that are coming up right behind your festival. And we wanted to make sure that we were planting our D.C. roots into Philadelphia, that we're establishing partnerships with them, where we were able to not just send our staff up to make sure that our DC artists were supported, but also, again, making sure that our signage was there as well to draw people back to our city, that we had videos that were constantly on their monitors, that our logos and our signage were on their street posts and so forth, because again, we want to make sure that we are increasing the tourism here into our city. So we use that platform of where they're able to draw 100,000 people and they're bringing Washington, D.C. To their festival. And also with that specific festival, there is a stage on their city stage. It's supported by, if you look at the flyer, Baller Alert. Baller Alert is a social media platform that is followed by millions of people. It was established by a DC native by the name of Robin Lyon, who comes out of Ward 7, actually. And she likes to make sure, like we all do, that DC has a voice in areas that are non-traditional. So she sets up this stage and we support that stage because it gives our DC talent a voice and a platform. So that is what has supported that $5,000 that was spent to send staff up to that specific festival.
Great, thank you very much. Do you have a policy on staff travel? Is there some sort of written policy that you evaluate or?
Well, I will say in the past 2 years, we have not really done a lot of travel. That was one isolated case. Most of the time, our travel has been around our conferences with the memberships that we're involved in, such as NATOA, or something involving film where people are getting trained. But that is probably about the gist of our travel thus far.
All right, and then it looks like there was around $200,000 in overtime payments.
Yes.
What drove that? What kinds of things came up that required overtime?
So overtime can be driven by some of our council hearings that may go into the wee hours of the night into early morning. There have been some long council hearings, council member. So it supports that, as well as ribbon cuttings, events that are taking place on weekends, some on holidays, press conferences that may come up and arise that we were not expecting. A great example of that would have been the unfortunate airline collision that took place just a couple of weeks ago, where we had to send out our videographers. We had our team in the master control room, and they were on site for a 12:30 press conference in the evening. So that gives you an example of why that overtime is important and kind of what so the different programs and projects that it supports.
So, and it goes back to when I was asking about the contractors. So in a setting like that, you might draw on somebody from All Pro, you might pay overtime.
Correct.
But it's to deal with these extraordinary, okay. And I will be curious to see the total amounts paid, because we know 200,000 comes up in overtime, and a certain amount that I'm going to think of as like the equivalent of overtime comes up through All Pro. So it'd be like to have a feel for that.
Absolutely.
Going back to some of the radio and public access stuff, I was asking, is there any way for you to track how many folks are touching your radio station? I mean, I asked this about the public access stations before. It's tricky. How many people are turning the radio dial to you? I don't know whether there's a way to track that, but how can you have a sense of how many people you're reaching through the radio?
We are looking at ways that we can pull those analytics, council member. Similar to our PEG channels, there has not been a program put in place to track that because it is government versus commercial. But we are always looking at ways, we're looking at ways even from the internet standpoint, how we are able to touch people outside of the city because they can get it online. So we are looking at ways that we can track that as well.
And then the radio station offers media literacy training for DC residents and students. What is that? Let me understand that.
So we've had students who have come in and we take them through a robust program similar to anything that we may have done in commercial radio as well. They learn the engineering side, they learn the hosting side of the program. They also learn how to produce, they learn how to edit. So that has been a part of the program there within our DC radio program, which is again in partnership with Howard University.
Is that, oh, did you want?
I did want to interject about the DC radio station. Because it's on a digital platform, we can actually track the number of people who come on the radio station to listen to it internationally, locally, around the world.
Oh, so I would be curious to see what
Okay.
those kinds of numbers look like.
All right.
In terms of the literacy, media literacy training, is that part of the thing that we started with, the creative economy, career access program, or is that something that's similar to that but different?
It has been a part of that, but it also is separate as well, because you may have young people who are just interested in radio and want to learn specifically about radio.
And so, like, how many people participate in that program each year? Do you have a sense?
Normally, it's young people through our internship, and that may be 3 to 4 total in the course of a year.
And is it a structured program, or it's just, kids who are engaged with you through an internship? That's one of the things that you do is you.
This would be one of many as they're learning the different features of our organization.
Okay. So you on the radio, I mean, one piece of it is the folks who come into it through the internet, but then there's other people who do it on the dial in a different way. So it's only going to give us a piece of what the audience is. Is there a way, and there may not be, but like to understand what the demographics of the audience is? And that's the kind of thing that Nielsen does, but part of what you're saying is Nielsen doesn't cover these things.
Unfortunately,
So
no.
is there anything out there that helps us get a sense of who we're reaching?
We're looking to see how we can set up a model that would identify the demographics that have been listeners of our station.
Okay, stretch run.
Okay.
We're going to make our 12:30, but maybe not by a ton. You might have thought, oh, he's got to be done soon. So your internship program, how do you promote your internship program? How does that work?
So with our internship programs, I will tell you, a lot of our interns find us. They call us, they come, they send emails. We just recently had a young man in our office who is a Morehouse college student who came up while he was home here in DC and talked about, what he's learning in school and why he thinks an internship with our office and our agency is important. We are also able to get this information out through DCPS, through our newsletter, through our social media platforms, and we have engaged council members in the past as well to let them know, to make sure that they let their constituents know that, as the summer approaches, internship opportunities are available at our agency.
And you referenced a Morehouse student who I guess is from DC, who's coming
Yes.
home for the summer. And so is that a typical profile that it's a college student?
Most of the time, we have had some high school students who have inquired as well, but typically it has been either they're on their way to college or they are college students.
And is it a summer internship program, or is it a thing that you're doing throughout the course of the year?
Typically, it's summer internships. We do offer it for those who, if they're coming home during winter break, that there is that opportunity there. But the bulk of our internships are during the summer months.
Okay. And then speaking of the summer months, how many summer youth employment SYEP slots do you have?
We normally are able to host roughly 3 to 4 MBSYEP participants each year, each summer.
Each summer. And so again, that's different from the creative economy career.
That's correct.
And it's a different time. The creative economy career is in the fall.
No, it'll run like normally, the Creative Economy Career Access Program will begin in the late spring or early summer, and it'll run through the end of the fiscal year and sometimes till around the Thanksgiving break. So it overlaps. Normally, OCTFME only has one of the 5 to 8 trainees that is placed with us. So we have one CCAPper, and the rest are with, private industry placements.
Yeah, the portion, what I was thinking about, and I wasn't clear, was that that 3-week intensive training.
No, that's separate.
That's earlier.
Yeah, yeah. And it's outside of OCTFME. So that 3-week module is at DCTV Public Access. So it's not housed
I see.
underneath. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and are the 3 slots that you have, are they internal to OCTFME, or are
Yes.
they placed, they're internal, they're not folks who you seek to place with businesses in the creative economy?
In the Summer Youth Employment Program and the actual internship programs, they are internally housed within OCTFME. They're working in our master control room. They're going out in the field with our videographers. They're in our radio stations. They're helping us lead some of our creative activations, but they're all working with our OCTFME staff internally.
I see. So you anticipated my next question, which is what is it that they do? And do you ever get folks who were in that program who then apply for the creative economy career program?
I don't think we've ever had someone that did that program that, heard about CCAP and applied.
No.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And mostly, yeah, I know that the program, goes like from, 14 to 25, but we've never had that cohort from 18 to 25, which you would qualify. Because, but no, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been for me very, very useful. This is a journey that we're going on together. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about the agency, want to be supportive, want to make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely, but also want to help you project and grow the creative economy. So we're on the start of this journey together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having taken the time a couple of weeks ago to walk me through the overview of the agency. For now, I think we're done. I do want to give Ms. Hightower an opportunity. I would come down and say hello, but I do want to give Ms. Hightower the opportunity to testify. She came and she sat for quite a while, but thank you very much.
We thank you, Councilmember Fruman, and the committee as well. And we look forward to hosting you at our agency in the very near future.
Let's do that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Hightower, for your patience. And with that, I will let you begin. Thanks.
I first want to say good afternoon to you, Councilmember Fruman, and I love your questioning, process. It's really thorough and detailed, and matter of fact, it enabled me to learn a couple of things about OCTFME under the leadership of Lady LaToya Foster, who has been very effective and efficient in the heart of our native city, Washington, D.C. I come today to not to question anything that you have asked, but to bring some light about a contractor experiencing a new OCP application in order to apply. And I'd like to start off also to say to you, thank you also to your legislative chairperson, Dan Passion, for allowing me to come in and speak today as well. I think at 67, sometimes I just move a little slow, but my brain moves very fast. Okay, the governing board of directors, along with our esteemed honorary liaisons and honorable advisory committee members of the Friends of Carter Barron Foundation for the Performing Arts, as it relates to the district agency, support the Office of Cable, TV, Film, Music, and Entertainment. And I love their staff that have been assigned to work with our nonprofit. But as it relates to a district agency, they must have the ability to assess a new contractual application and finally require an on-site OCP specialist. I know this from experience, as I've dealt with the District of Columbia contractual laws from 1992 to 2005 with DPR, and interestingly with DOES, they need an on-site person when you talk about the field of entertainment, workforce, business sector for the 21st century. They are using the app that was out in 2000 called Aruba. This application has been in existence since 2000. And years ago, OCP always allowed an on-site specialist to resolve their operations and issues. It is important for this committee to know that the entertainment sector never have accepted payments after their performance. Instead, 50% is required before any advertisement can be employed, as the balance must be issued prior to the live performance takes place. During the late 70s up to 2003, I was a part-time professional artist, and that's what led me to leave from DuPont Park to where I love the Carter Barron, opening up for the legendary Whispers. And I required 50% upfront and would not hit a stage unless my final payment before my performance was in my hands. You know, the Office of Cable and TV, Film, Media, TV, and Entertainment has evidenced they have a very proficient staff. And they should be granted always the opportunity to exercise a tutorial assessment to make a decision whether or not an application is best for the clients that they are serving, whether it's in film, whether it's in TV, whether it's in cable, etc. And I'm here because I spent on Ariba, which I used to use in 2003 or 4 under President William Jefferson Clinton. Workforce Initiative, as you know, is a federal mandate, and it still exists under every Democratic and Republican administration. However, I was shocked. I was shocked that trying to get one thing resolved took me about 1 week, and thank God that Director Foster's assistant, Chief of Staff, Lady Monique Clary Davis, was able to give me a number. In this application, it used to be when you have an issue, they bring everybody in so that, meaning contractors with potential interest to bid, compete, etc., so that they could learn the Ariba application. Now it's like they threw this application on to OCTFME, one of my two best agencies, along with the Commission on the Arts and Humanities. As if, and then they don't have somebody on site. I never seen Miss Davis and I kind of have a similar personality. We're not always bubbly, but we're serious and we're very, very proficient about what we do. She was going through it, just trying to help us understand what's going on. Why can't we get a call back? It was always subjecting me to using the link. And in the link wasn't helpful. So if you run, for instance, it had a NID number for me. I kept going back in. I kept going back in to get my NID number. I couldn't get it. I ended up calling. I tried it for 2 days. The following week, I called back again. And then I got a number. And what I'm simply saying is that if I'm running an agency, I don't care if it's federal, district, or corporate, and I want my clientele to make sure that they can bid on monies, I wanted a link that is easy to process or complete versus complicated. And what I would love and ask for you is when OCTFME gets the Aruba, whichever one they, is correct, that they have an on-site person there specifically for those inquiries, because if not, then a person like myself and others can be subjected to a very, very difficult time in getting resolved. And that's why I'm here today, because I never seen this happen before. And I think it's important when, again, if we have to go through a contractual application, whether you're servicing youth, whether you're servicing in school or out of school, or whether you've been a public awareness, cultural enrichment, education, or entertainment facility, you need to be able not to have difficulty submitting in your application.
So I hear you, Ms. Hightower. This is new to me, so I need to look into this
Absolutely.
and understand it. Part of what I hear is the complexity of the app generally. A different thing that I hear is that in the creative economy for performers,
Absolutely.
there's a different cadence of payment that may apply in another place. And so let me take, that's a thing that would apply not just to this agency, but to other agencies, your other favorite agency, prominent among them. So thank you very much for your testimony.
Absolutely.
Let us do an issue that was not on my radar screen in any kind of way that is now. And thank you very much.
And thank you. Just please make sure that they get the opportunity to test what OCP is proposing so that it's a best fit for their mission. Okay. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
And so this concludes today's public oversight hearing. If you plan to submit written testimony for the record, please do so by uploading it to the council's electronic hearing management system at https://lims.dccouncil.gov/hearings/ before the close of business on Thursday, February 27th, 2025. The time is now 12:32 and this hearing is adjourned.